Okay, so let's now move to the costing methods. So let's now get to the costing methods. So there are different costing methodologies that we are going to look at. We have what we call target costing. We have target costing. We have life cycle costing. We have marginal costing. This is assumed knowledge, marginal costing, and absorption costing. We have activity-based costing. Activity-based costing. We have environmental costing. We have environmental costing. So these are the costing methods we are going to look at. These are the costing methods we are going to look at. So with the target costing, the life cycle costing, marginal and absorption costing, comparison between the absorption costing and the activity-based costing, then the environmental costing. So before we look at these costing methods one by one, we need to know why is it important to know about the cost of, why do we need to know about the cost of a product? Importance of cost information. So the cost information, why is it important? So the cost information is of importance to determine, number one, the price. So we use the cost information to determine the right price to charge. So the price we charge is somehow related to the cost we incurred. So the cost determines the price. So it is used to determine the selling price. The cost is used to determine the selling price. Besides determining the selling price, the cost can also be of use in determining the inventory values. So for inventory valuation. So the cost is also key in determining inventory valuation. Also determining profitability of a product. So the cost can be of use in determining the profitability of a product. So let's start with the, since we are only left with very few minutes, I think we can start with target costing. So target costing and life cycle costing are very short concepts. So target costing. So on the next session, we'll start from, we'll look at marginal absorption and ABC costing. So target costing, this is used when the firm is planning to enter a new market. Normally we use it when you want to enter a new market, and it wants to determine the maximum cost we must keep to maintain profitability. Maximum cost the firm must keep to maintain profitability. So under target costing, we want to determine the maximum amount of cost we should incur to maintain our targeted profit. So there are key assumptions that we make in target costing. Key assumptions. So in target costing, the key assumptions made are, the first assumption is that the selling price is fixed. The selling price is fixed. That is the first key assumption. So we are assuming that in the market where we are going to be selling this product, we are not in a position to determine the selling price. There is already a price for this product. So we want to go and launch our computers in Bulawayo. And there are other firms that are actually selling these computers in Bulawayo. So in Bulawayo, we are not in a position to just charge a price that is different, because the market there, they know the price that is being charged for this type of brand. And our brand, the available brands are perfect substitutes or competitors for our brand. So if they are selling perfect substitutes or they are perfect competitors for our brand, we can't charge higher prices than them. Otherwise, we will fail to penetrate the market. So there is a fixed selling price in that market. And the profit also, the company wants to maintain a fixed profit. The company wants to maintain a fixed profit. So the profit level that we want to maintain, it is a fixed level of profit. We want to maintain a fixed level of profit. So the selling price is fixed. The company wants to maintain a fixed profit. So remember the relationship between the cost and the profit. It says that. So relationship between the cost and the profit, it says that the profit is equals to the selling price minus the selling price minus the cost. So with this in mind, if we say the selling price is fixed and the profit is fixed, the only variable element is the cost here. Because the relationship between profit, selling price, and cost, if we say the selling price minus the cost, we get the profit. So if the profit is fixed and the selling price is fixed, the only variable, the assumption is that the only variable item is the cost. The firm should play around the cost in order to achieve the targeted profit. So we can't change the profit, we can't change the selling price. What we can only play around with is the cost. So if we want to increase the profit, we can lower down the cost. So the targeted cost is then calculated as follows. So the targeted cost is then calculated as follows. Targeted cost is equals to the selling price. That is the price in the market. Remember, when we want to sell, we'll say that there is a fixed price in the market minus the profit, which we say again is fixed. So if we say the selling price minus the profit, which is fixed. So the selling price minus the profit, which is fixed, we get our targeted cost. We get our targeted cost. So the selling price minus the profit, which is fixed, we get our targeted cost. Then the profit used is a percentage of the selling price. In most cases, they'll give you the profit as a percentage of selling price. That is the margin. So the profit we are going to be using is the margin. If given markup, change it to margin. If given markup, change it to margin in order to calculate the profit. If given markup, change it to margin in order to determine the profit. Don't just use markup, change that markup to margin, because the profit is a percentage of, if the profit is a percentage of selling price, then that is the margin. So we can multiply markup and selling price. So let's have an example. ABC is currently producing and selling laptops. Producing and selling laptops in town X. They are deciding to venture into a new market. They're deciding to venture into a new market Y. The close competitors in this market are selling laptops similar to our brand at $450. At $450. Currently, the costs of producing the laptops for ABC Limited are $380. The firm wants to maintain a margin, sorry, let's say a markup. The firm wants to maintain a markup of 25%. Firm wants to maintain a markup of 25%. Required. Determine the cost gap. So determine the targeted cost first. Targeted cost gap, and the ways in which ABC can use to reduce the cost gap. Ways in which ABC can use to reduce the cost gap. Let's make an adjustment to this one. Let's increase it slightly from 380. Let's put it at 400. So the costs are currently 400. So the first step is to calculate the target cost. How do you calculate the target cost? So to calculate the target cost, so if you're going to sell in this market, we are told that the other competitors are selling at 450. So if we charge a price above this one, we might lose customers. So the selling price we should target is 450. Then the profit that we are targeting, we are told it's we are given margin being our markup being 25%. You change markup to margin because if you are dealing with selling price, you multiply margin times selling price. So if you're given markup, if your markup is 25 over 100, that's 25%. To margin, from markup to margin, 25% is 1 over 4. You add from markup to margin, you add. So it means that's 25. It was 25 over 100. It will become 25 over 125. So if the margin is 25 over, if the markup is 25 over 100, the margin is 25 over 125 times the 450, meaning our profit is what? 90. So our profit is 90. So for us to make a profit of 90, what does that mean? For us to make our profit a profit of 90, it means that our cost must restrict our cost to, because if you say the targeted selling price minus the profit, we get the targeted cost. So it means our cost must be 360. If we want to make a profit of 90, our cost should be 360. But it's not the case because the current cost, currently our cost is at what? 400. So there is a cost gap. So a cost gap is the difference between the cost that we are targeting or the cost that we are actually incurring against the cost that we need in order to maintain the profit level. So the cost gap becomes the 400 cost we are actually incurring right now. minus the cost that we should target to achieve the profit of 90, which is 360. So it means there is a gap of how much? There is a gap of 40. That's our cost gap. It means the current costs are exceeding the cost that you're targeting by $40. So if that is the case, what should we do if we still want to venture into this market? So what we can do is to then work on reducing the current cost. In some cases, it is the expected cost. We find ways to reduce the current cost or the expected cost. How can we reduce the current cost or the expected cost? So in order to reduce this current cost or the expected cost, we can consider redesigning the product. So if the product had unnecessary, maybe Padachi Tengesa this product, we were selling it together with the laptop bag. So we're selling this laptop together with this laptop. We can decide, let's now just sell the laptop alone as a way of trying to cut down the cost. So we can reduce the components. Identify the non-value adding components. You remove them. Reduce the components. You can also consider sourcing for cheaper supplies. So consider changing your supplier. And also, if you are using high quality material, you can consider substituting it for standard quality material. So substituting high quality material with standard quality. And consider substituting high quality material with standard quality. Then also we can consider, so substituting high quality and standard quality, you can consider using cheap labor. In most cases, we can now talk about semi-skilled labor. You can consider using my machines, because machines can tend to lower down the cost. So can consider automation, making use of automation where appropriate. So you can consider making use of machines in some parts of the process. These tend to reduce the cost. So we want to make sure our costs are restricted to 360, but currently they are 400. So let's consider what can we reduce so that we can meet the target of 360. But there are factors to also consider before making the decision. Factors to consider. So before saying, okay, I'm going to reduce the components. I'm going to source out for cheaper suppliers. So before saying I'm going to source out for cheaper suppliers, there are factors you need to consider. Number one it might be will it not affect the appeal to the customer? Maybe your customers actually bought your product because of that, because you're using high quality material. That's why you're dominating this market and you are thinking of going into another market. So if the same customers that maybe bought your product here in town X, if they visit your shops in town Y, they have the assumption that it's the same quality. So they might want to support your business believing that it is the same quality. And if they find out that the quality is different, they will also think even here, the quality has changed. So consider, will it not affect that which the customers wanted from your product? Then also, using unskilled labor or semi-skilled, it might compromise quality. Will it not compromise the quality? Will it not compromise quality? These are some of the factors to take into consideration. Now, let's have a subheading, life cycle. We have a lot to cover, life cycle costing. Life cycle costing. This is a technique which incorporates all the costs of the product, which incorporates all the costs of the products. In pricing and decision making. We are considering all the costs that the product is going to face, from the research and development up to the time the product is removed from the market. Remember, a product is like a person. It goes through different stages of its life until it dies. So a product goes through the research and development stage. In the life cycle of a product, we have the research and development. So this is where we are designing the product. So the research and development stage, this is where the product is being designed. We are deciding on how the product is going to be like. This is where the product is being designed. That's deciding how the product is going to be. Then after the product has been designed, so there are costs associated with carrying out the research. In fact, a lot of costs are incurred coming up with the prototypes that you'll be testing to see how the product performs. So we incur a lot of costs in the research and development phase before we start selling our product. Then we have the costs that we incur on the introduction stage. So the costs that have been incurred in the introduction stage, this is where the product is being launched. So the introduction stage, this is when the product is being launched into the market. So the product is launched in the market, and the early adopters are the first people to buy the product. It will be having low sales, but it will be having high costs at this stage. So the product is launched and early adopters start buying the product. Then from the introduction, it grows. We have the growth stage. From growth, we have maturity stage. So the product matures in the market, then it gets to decline stage. So there are different stages in the life of the product. So in life cycle costing, we're estimating the cost that the product will incur throughout its life. So I think let's end here. Then we'll resume from life cycle costing in the next session and look at the other costing methodologies. So for now, I think you can go and read. Today we did we looked at a lot of theoretical aspects. So please go and read those areas, because theory, there is no other way you are supposed to read.